Welcome to Between the Lions, a podcast hosted by the Beau Morris Lions Club. This is the second part in our series on change. My guest today is Karen Devlin, who runs Bridges, a very successful business that specializes in executive coaching and strategic advice. Karen has a wealth of experience with organizations of all sorts going through change, and I know that our clubs that are thinking about embarking on a bit of a rejuvenation process will find lots of helpful takeaways. Not everyone understands what an executive coach does. Do you think you could fill us in on your background and your bit about your company?
Obviously, these topics are a real passion of mine, so I'm very happy to talk to you and to talk to your people in the Lions group as well. My company Bridges was established in 2003. I set that up after many years working in corporations, both public sector corporations and private sector corporations. The executive coaching part of our business is really aimed at partnering with executives in business. And when I say executives, that could be a board, it could be a CEO and the CEO's team of a business, either public business or private business, or it could be a major division within the business and working with the executives in that team. But I call it partnering with those executives to help them to build the performance. So it's always aimed at some form of performance, either their own performance or the performance of their team or the performance of the business. So we're what we call organisation development specialists. So even when we're coaching, we're looking at the organisation as a whole and as an entity that needs to be successful in some way. Obviously, the success is defined by the business. So my role is mainly a questioning role. That's the essence of what an executive coach does. Questioning in a way that helps the executives to think and plan. People like to do, I find, and often people are successful in a business because they've done things and they've achieved things and they define themselves by what they do. But really, the success of any performance, whether it's individual or team or whole business, is really about the extent to which people think about what they want to achieve. So my job is to help people slow down and reflect on their assumptions, reflect on why they're doing what they're doing, reflect on how do they know it'll work, and it's having that reflection time that most senior people, most managers, even team leaders, even if they're leading one or two people, helping them think about why they're doing what they're doing, because often people just default into behaviours without thinking about it. So that's the main part of my work. Part of the work is also teaching. There might be some models or some information I have that people might find useful and then apply it. But if I'm doing my job well, it's more the questioning role. Sometimes I might be giving advice. I've seen it done this way and I know that it works. That's more of a mentoring role rather than a coaching role. But the coaching role is challenging assumptions and questioning and people in a way that helps them think through what's the best course of action to take in a business.
So if you're looking at a little bit of a rejuve, a lot of our clubs are just trying to refresh after COVID, you're saying that sort of thinking about what you're doing. So thinking about doing things a little differently, perhaps, is that?
Well, sometimes thinking through things might mean that you don't change anything. So when you think it through about what do we want to do differently, and what are we doing well now, you might come to the conclusion that in this day and age, with with the turbulence that's going on, sticking to your knitting and stop worrying about everything else, just sticking to your knitting and keep on the journey that you know works may be the solution. I've seen that happen often, and I've come in and taken them through the thinking. Why do you think you need to change? What's going to be different? Those sorts of questions. You see people sitting there going, "Oh, maybe we don't need to." But if you do need to, you'll know there'll be pain points. So thinking through those pain points and what's causing those pain points is really important. Sometimes it's just evolution. Times have changed. I mean, the classic one that we all know about is working from home. Who would have thought on the 20th of March 2020 that we'd all be working like this? I work now with people I've never met face to face. So things have changed, times have changed, generations are changing. So thinking through what do those changes mean and what are the pain points that we're feeling because of those changes, things have changed for us, that's an important a thinking session to have as a group of people.
Yes, a lot of our thinking has been around, I think it's this evolution thing, because we're looking to attract younger members into our club. And it's really difficult.
Well, as well as my experience in organisations, I've also had experience in an international association for business and professional women, and we've got clubs like the Lions have in 100 countries throughout the world. So, we operate at that international level like you do, and also at that micro club level. And some of our clubs are very small. Some of our clubs, look, the Constitution said minimum of 15 people, but some clubs got by with less than that. And some of the clubs, some of the people, women in the clubs, have been there for years. So it wasn't uncommon to have a club of retirees and saying we want to attract the younger people. And I think one of the things is that when we first start this thinking, we gave out the wrong messages. It was all, "Oh, look, we know what to do. We've been around here for so long. We're so experienced." And the young people would come up with new ideas, particularly around the use of social media, and we'd go, "Oh, yes, but no, that won't work." And of course, the young people would try, once or twice to get involved and then get sick of it, and I don't blame them. And we had to have a good look at ourselves and say, look, what are we here for? We had to revisit our goals and our objectives and our mission, and we did, and we found that, look, they have not changed, but we wanted to rejuvenate membership in the club, and we wanted to have younger members. I find that if you've got a task, it doesn't matter how small it is, and you involve young people to work alongside you in that task, it might be putting together a new list of members on social media or on computer or something, and you invite them in to help you with it and work with you in it. They start to like working alongside you. Young people love working alongside older people, particularly if it misses a generation. So it's like they're working with their grandparents rather than their parents. And they absolutely love it. But the secret is, I think, that you've got to involve them in a project, and then you've got to give them the lead. Watch them and enjoy their success. Watch the different way they do things and revel in it rather than, oh, God, look at them, they're doing it that way. Oh, heavens. You wouldn't do that to a child that's starting to walk. Oh, he's going to fall over. She's going to fall over, So, and I think it's more changing as older people, changing our mindset and saying, becoming a mentor and coach, and only intervening if they're struggling I had another role in a board in one of the universities and worked with young people on projects. And they actually would get, when they started to lead teams in the projects, that's when they really needed some help. And so it was actually coaching and listening to them. They got the answers. They got an answer. So I'm rambling away from your question a bit there, but I think I actually think the starting point is mindset. It's mindset with what the leaders I work with. Why are you thinking what you're thinking? Who do you trust? Can you let go? A lot of us get to where we get to because we've been in control of the outcomes, and we don't like not being in control of the outcomes. But as you know, in a voluntary organisation, you can't control people. You've got to engage them and get their commitment.
Yeah. And I'm just taking you back a little bit, because you've done a lot of transformation projects. I know we've covered that you really need to reflect and you have to be willing to change your mind. But are there any other criteria that you think are really important to put in place if you're thinking of rejuvenating?
Yeah, there's two things. One, being clear about what you want to achieve and the planning side of it. And the second is the consultation with the people that you want to bring along with you. So the planning is got to be 85% of the task. And this day and age, it's not even planning and implementing and good, that's done. It's actually planning for evolving with what's happening, around the business. So you might plan to be different, but the difference might be a whole lot of short-term projects, which means that each time you do a project, you've got to reflect and then maybe adapt as you go. So it's got to be an adapting type of planning rather than an implementation type of planning. But planning is all of it, and you don't stop planning and reviewing and planning and reviewing. I've got a little formula: awareness, acceptance, and action. The planning involves awareness. If you want to bring people along, first of all, they need to understand the need for change. Some people might be just in their comfort zone and not really want to do anything different. A couple of people come in with new eyes and see that there needs to be change. So it's raising the awareness first, and not just intellectual awareness, but heart awareness. When people are aware in their heart of the need to change, action happens, action follows. Driving the action when people haven't internalised the need is just wasted energy. But awareness, acceptance, action, the triple A's, once you get the awareness and the acceptance, the rest will follow. In fact, you'll be trying to hold people back once they really understand the need for change. And then, and the planning involves having really clear goals and rationale. So unless it really makes sense to people, they're not going to be interested. And you don't just share that with people once. It's got to become part of the story that's told. We used to do this, but we're doing this now because, and we've trialled it, or we've seen case studies and we know that it'll work. Or even better, and this is point 2, the first point is the planning, but the second point is the consultation. Even better, consulting on the goals, consulting on the vision. Raising awareness around the need. It seems as though we need to change. What do we want to look like? And consulting on that vision, and then consulting on the problem solving, consulting on what the options might be. You ask the question, how do we involve young people? Well, there's going to be numerous options. Consulting on the options, and then consulting on the evaluating the options, and all the time you're consulting, you're influencing and bringing people along and getting them committed to new way of doing things. And if you want to involve young people, I would involve them in that as well. You know, we want some young people here. We want your help in how we might change ourselves so that we are more attractive to young people.
And then just because any kind of change involves rocking the boat a little bit, I know you do team coaching. Any tips for how to keep the team together?
People feel uncomfortable. Yeah, how do we make the space safe for people to enable them to step outside their comfort zones? We know that with any change, there'll be about 6% of people who will never want to change. But what we tend to do is spend 80% of our time trying to influence 6% of the people. We know that change occurs, the tipping point is around about a third. So step number one with your team is to get a third of the people on board so that you've got that groundswell of commitment, and make sure they're really involved. In fact, make sure they're leading it. Like if you, Megan, are the change leader, you set up the space, the environment, the meetings, but hand over and let others take charge, or ask somebody, will they take the lead in that? You know, say to someone, you really understand the challenge here, or you've got a good idea of the vision. Why don't you explain that, rather than feeling, the leaders tend to feel that they've got to do everything themselves and then wonder why everybody sits back and waits for them to do something or make a decision. It's really important to push it out, particularly in a voluntary organisation.
I know it's really hard to get rid of the mindset that says, oh, be reasonable, do it my way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Look, we have a little formula which says that a decision is a function. The decision is only as good as the acceptance of the decision. So you can have the most brilliant, perfect decision in the world, and if it's only you that are committed to that decision, then you're not going to get any change. But the more people who agree with the decision, accept the decision, the more likely you're going to get the commitment and the action.
Karen, from your vast basket of experience, do you have some examples you can share with us of organisations maybe similar to the Lions that have gone through a rejuve process and have been successful?
Yeah, look, I would recommend that you have a look at Country Women's Association. They've done some amazing things. If you think back, they're over 100 years old. I mean, they must be a similar age to Lions, and they've always been involved in, you know, change of policy and good works, from, you know, whether it's building a toilet in a country town so women could go to the toilet while they're shopping. It's amazing the amount of work that's been involved in that, through to influencing, government policy, plus all the work they did throughout the wars and what have you. And they have transformed themselves so that they're attracting young women now. There's even a country women's club in Collingwood, of all places, you know, the heart of cool, if you like. But the young women are attracted to being involved. I would strongly recommend that you get a speaker from Country Women's. They're the most successful that I know of.
And what have they done basically to transform from being just sort of country women, as you said, and then there's someone in Collingwood, which is hardly country?
I know. But they've stayed abreast. They have stayed abreast of what are the issues, you know, for women generally, and the younger women in particular. And it's interesting. I was a client of mine, a major client involved in a major product that of interest to young women, young mothers. And one of the managers said to me the other day, our clients, our young mothers know about transformation, because from the moment they're pregnant and then the moment that they have a baby, it's all a totally new world. And then they have their second child, and then they have their third, and it's all they understand is transformation. Whereas our senior team, our executive team, our CEO and the executives are mostly males over 50, and they actually don't understand this transformation through the eyes of their key client group. So, that's why I think you've got an organisation like Country Women's who's really understood their client group, really understood the people that they're attracting and want to be part of it, and made it attractive for them.
So that's key then, is really getting into the community you're trying to support, getting to know them.
Yeah, but you say you want younger people. You need to understand what will attract younger people in, and which younger people. Is it young mothers? Unlikely. They're so busy. Is it young men, who've got their sporting and their courting and their whatever else they're doing, their hobbies, and they're trying to establish themselves in the workplace? Maybe not. Is it students? Is it uni students? Maybe. They're the group that I was working with in the university that I was on the board with, and they're hungry to do good work. I'm also a volunteer at Vinnie's in the hamper delivery, and we have young people come and deliver hampers with them, and they say they just want to do some good work, and they fit it in around their studies. So that might be a target market for you.
Yes, that and perhaps school children as well.
High school children, particularly, yes. They might need shorter, sharper projects. But my the women's organisation I was involved in, our current president, last president, was a very young woman. Now that young woman has an interest in politics, and she joined, and she's a journalist, but when I say young, early 20s she was when she joined. But she had an interest in politics, so she could see belonging to the club was going to give her a whole lot of experience in meetings and chairing and minutes and all those sorts of things that we take for granted. Where are young people learning those skills today? And then she became president, and she was very keen to do that. From the country, interestingly enough, she came down from the Murray, and that club that she came from eventually, that club up on the Murray, works very closely with the local high school. Very close. In fact, it's a partnering with the local high school to provide. They just look at what does a high school need and provides things. Maybe some training, maybe some support running an event, a weekend event for them. So that's what I mean by partnering. If you could find the right partner, maybe a sporting club, or maybe a high school, or maybe something else.
Yes. So underneath the umbrella of some experience, but operating on their own with just the support structure in place.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way it's going to work, Megan, when you think about it. They're not going to want to come in and have a whole lot of older people telling them what to do. We forget where our mind has been influenced, and it was pre-mobile phones. used to be fixed in an office on a desk. In fact, when I started work, used to smoke in the office. Heavens apart. I mean, there's all that imprinting from the past that all the paper. I mean, I'm still amazed at how I need a paper in front of me. But that's because of it's always been there. It's almost like a safety blanket of some sort to have it printed out and have the paper there, because I've always had it, whereas young people haven't had that. So they're quite happy to fiddle around on their devices without things being printed off. So there's small everyday things every day that we get in their way. I find they're a lot brighter than I was when I was their age. Lot more knowledgeable, a lot more able to tackle problem solve.
And so yes, just getting out of their way and letting them get on with it is a great thing. Well, Karen, thank you so much for giving up your time today.
My pleasure.
I really enjoyed chatting with you.
That's all right.
It was lovely. And thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Bo Morris Lions Club saying bye.